You are what you were. A lot of people don't like this title because it's true. Isaiah 60 verse 1 to 2, notice. Arise and shine, for the light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But the Lord shall rise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. Amen. This is talking about Zion. It's talking about us. So God says, arise and shine. But the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. The daughter of Babylon, Isaiah 47 says, they're going to uncover their ties. Means they're going to expose their ties. Prostitution dresses. Satan is using many men and women to promote sexual immoralities. Many dress like prostitute. Even to church. All these Babylon churches. And unfortunate, sometimes when you visit conference churches, because Rome has been infiltrated. Long nails, eyelashes, artificial hair, painting of faces like a Jezebel in Kings. Jezebel, she painted her face because Jezebel was trying to get Jehu. Prostitution. And now a lot of people dress all this sexual immorality, satanic Babylon dresses, and hip-hop dress style. They take it to conference churches. When you go to the beach, oh God forbid, you better not go to the beach or visit beach. This modern Babylon time, if you go to the beach, man, you're going to sin a lot. Half naked, almost naked men and women. As a child of God, you have to dress unique. Not like Babylon, not like pagan dress, demonic dresses. Some of them, some of the women, even the guys and women, not only women, some of the guys, they try to show their body. You know, underwear, and they try to prove to the world that they have a muscles. How are you going to uncover your tithe? Unless you demonic possess. Why? Because Revelation chapter 18 says, Babylon is fallen and it is fallen. And it's become the habitation of devils and the hole of every foul spirit and the cage of every unclean and hateful birds. God doesn't want us to dress like a pagans. God doesn't want us to dress like Babylonians. God doesn't want us to dress like worldly people. God doesn't want us to dress like a prostitute and half-naked men and women and almost naked. God doesn't want it. Your body is the temple of what? Chicken? No, praise the Lord. Your body is the temple of Holy Spirit. Your body is not the temple of demons. And if you don't put the dress reform right, Jesus Christ said, the word that I speak will judge him at the last days. All this gay and lesbians, all the president, some of them even says, they tell some of the countries, they say, well, if you don't accept, gay and lesbian, we're not going to support you. We're not going to help you. All the president, they all want. Rome are pushing this thing, but small screen, they pretend like they talk against. By peace, the word of God says in Daniel chapter 8, it shall destroy many. All this Babylonian government, they're the one they push all this pagan, satanic, half-naked, prostitution, dress, all them famous. And all these functions that they push in the world. Rome are pushing all these things because they want everybody to become like them. Because if you're in darkness, you can protest against them. All this darkness. Ellen G. White says, if you want to know all the cruelty, or if you want to know all the bad history, we only have to look to the Rome, the great controversy. Rome has done more than every empire. Isaiah 28, verse 14 to 15. Isaiah says they have made covenant with death, and they have made agreement with hell. Then Jesus Christ continues, Isaiah chapter 28, verse 18. Jesus Christ says, your agreement with hell and death shall not stand. When the overflowing scourge pass through, you shall be trodden down by it. So if they're pushing all these false doctrines, they also infiltrate all these Sunday churches. They have taken the leadership. They're the one they have become a pastors in all these Babylon churches. That's why they are the mother of the church in Revelation chapter 17. 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 9. Notice, in like manner also, that women adorn themselves in modest apparel, not with braided hair or gold or pearls or costly array. You see a lot of people, they braid their hair. If you go to India and Brazil, sometimes they will take off all their hair for sacrifice for their idols, satanic pagan worship. And a lot of times, Roman papacy, the leaders, they will go to India and Brazil, those places that the pagan worship, they buy their hair, they are pagan idol gods, they will buy those hairs. That's where mesh came from. And if all these satanic hairs that was sacrificed for their idols or pagan gods, lowercase God gods, pagans, idols, if you add those hairs, what kind of spirit you going to have? You're going to be demon possessed. And unfortunately, a lot of famous, they use all this, fanciful, pagan hairs, mesh and all those things that a lot of them they breed. Bible talks about, Bible said we don't have to breed our hair. So if you have all this prostitute, pagan, satanic, half-naked, almost naked men and women, Babylon dress, you're going to be doomed. You're not going to have the seal of God. This is coming from Evangelism, page 268, paragraph 2. Notice, one of the points upon which those newly come to the faith will need instruction is the subject of dress. Let a new convert be faithful dealt with. Are they in vain in dress? Do they cherish pride of heart? The idolatry of dress is the modern disease. It must not be taken over to the new life. In most cases, submission to the gospel requirement would demand decided change in the dress. Amen. That's what Ellen G. White says. This is coming from Selective Messages, volume 3, page 242, paragraph 1. Notice, the dress and its arrangement upon the person is the general found to be the index of the man or the woman. Notice, this is coming from Selective Message, volume 3, page 242, paragraph 2. Notice, we judge a person's character by the style of the dress worn. A modest, godly woman will dress modestly. A refined taste, a cultivated mind will be revealed in the choice of appropriate attire. The one who is simple and unpretending in her dress and in her manners shows that she understands the true woman is characterized by the moral worth. How charming, how interesting is simplicity in dress, which in comeliness can be compared with the flowers of the field. Testimonies for the Church, volume 1, page 521, paragraph 2. As I travel from place to place, I found that the Reformed dress is not rightly represented, and I'm more to feel that something more definitely should be said, that there may be uniform action in this matter. This style of dress is unpopular, and for this reason, neatness and taste should be exercised by those who adopt it. I have spoken once upon this point, yet some fail to follow the advice given. There should be uniformity as to the length of the reformed dress among Sabbath keepers. Those who make themselves peculiar by adopting this dress should not think for a moment that is unnecessary to show order, taste, and neatness. It is a great injury to the dress reform to have person introduced into community a style which in every particular need reforming before it can rightly represent the reformed dress. Wait, sister, till you can put the dress on right. She says we have to exercise taste because the dress reform is unpopular. The world don't like dress reform. Do you know what the world like? The word Babylonian pagan prostitution, half naked or almost naked, cut up short top dress and underwear and all these pagan Babylonian dresses. So if we're going to put the dress reform on, the word of God, and in GY say we have to make it clean. We have to exercise taste, meekness, but it has to be dress reform. Testimonies for the Church, volume 1, page 521, paragraph 1. Notice what Ellen G. White says. In answer to the letters of inquiry from many sisters relating to the proper length of the reform dress, I will say that in our part of the state of Michigan, we have adopted the uniform length of about 9 inches from the floor. From the floor. This is coming from 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 3 to 4. And again, 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 3 to 4. Whose adorning? Let it not be that outwardly adorning of plaiting the hair and of wearing of gold. God don't want all of them. Gold bracelets and all this jewelry. He don't want. He continue. Or of putting on of apparel. But let it be the hidden man of the heart, in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of the meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great price. Amen. Amen. Meek and quiet spirit. That's what Jesus Christ wants, whether you man or woman. Ellen G. White says, when the ministers, when they don't dress right, they are dressing is preaching to the congregation. And then Ellen G. White continued. She said it's called strange fire. Remember Aaron's sons? Remember when they kindled the strange fire? They all got killed. So if you don't put the dress reform right, I see some people, they want to come and preach the foundation of Adventists. Some of the women, the bottom of the dress is dress reform. But a lot of times, the top, they're not putting the dress reform right. We don't want all these people. We don't want them. Amen? Yeah. I hope all our ministers, they're going to see this. We don't want everybody to come to our pulpit and dress like a Babylonian pagan dress. Not on this foundation. If we see you dressing, half dress reform and half Babylonian dress, we don't need you. This is coming from 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 23. Notice, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 23. And the very God of peace sanctify you wholly. And I pray God for your whole spirit and body be preserved blameless unto the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. That's what God wants. The whole spirit, body and soul to be preserved blameless unto the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. This is coming from Evangelism, page. Self-denying in dress is the part of our Christian duty. To dress plainly and abstain from display of jewelry and ornament of every kind is in keeping with our faith. Are we of the number who see the folly of worldlings in indulging in extravagant in dress as well as in the love of amusement? If so, we should be of that class who shun everything that gives sanction to this spirit which taking possessions of the mind and heart of those who live for this world only and who have no thought or cares for the next. If you don't wear dress reform, Ellen G. White says, you are worldling. You like a pagan. You live for this world only. This is coming from Ephesians chapter 5 verse 27. Notice, Ephesians chapter 5 verse 27. That he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blame. Testimonies for the Church, volume 1. None need fear that I have made dress reform one of my principal subjects as we travel from place to place. Those who have heard me upon this matter would have to act upon the light that has already been given. I have done my duty. I have borne my testimony. And those who have heard me and read that which I have written must now bear their responsibility of receiving or rejecting the light given. If they choose to venture to be forgetful hearers and not doers of the work, they run their own race and will be accountable to God for the course they pursue. I am clear. I shall urge none and condemn none. This is not the work assigned me. God knows his humble, willing, obedient children and will reward them according to their faithful performance of his will. Too many, the dress reform is too simple and humble to be adopted. This is coming from Testimonies for the Church, Volume 1, page 131, paragraph 2. And again, Testimonies for the Church, Volume 1, page 131, paragraph 2. Notice what she says. Why it is so hard to live a self-denied, humble life? Because professed Christians are not dead to the world. It is easy living after we are dead, but many are longing for the leeks and onion of Egypt. They have this position to dress and act as much like the world as possible and yet go to heaven. Such claims up some other way. They do not enter through the straight gate and narrow way. But the devil, his pain will be more. His representative is the papacy in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. The mystery of lawlessness is already at work. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 7. So the mystery is working, and unfortunately a lot of people don't know the Antichrist. All the Sunday churches, they don't know the Antichrist. Even when you come to some of our conferences, Rome, the leaders that they have taken places in our conferences, that they have a Freemason 6 frame that a 3 goes this way and another 3 goes this way. They have a Bible underneath like a Freemason triangle. They change our logo, 3 inches make logo, and Habakkuk 2 tables. Some of them, they try to deceive some of our Seventh-day Adventists. So all these Babylonian pagan satanic dresses that is coming to our new organization, that Ellen G. White says in Selective Message Volume 1, page 204, they don't have our belief anymore. They're in darkness. They have forsaken the God of their youth. They're not on the foundation of Adventists. Even they don't understand the Bible. Ellen G. White says those who sigh and cry will be the one that will have the seal of God on their forehead. If you visit every Seventh-day Adventist and if you don't see these 2 charts, Habakkuk 2 tables, don't go. If you don't see these tables hanging in our churches, better be careful what you're going to hear, because you're not going to hear the foundation of Adventists. The reason why all this foolish wind of doctrines or false doctrine that is brewing in Adventism right now, because a lot of people, they offshoot. They're not on the foundation of Adventists. Foolish wind of doctrine. That's why they always try to control the work, because they don't want Seventh-day Adventists. They don't want our people spread a 3 inches message. They always like to spread, Roman doctrine, doctrines of Balaam and Jezebel in Revelation chapter 2. False torch of prophecy, kindling from the hellish torch of Satan. Just like Ellen G. White said, that's so sad. Seventh-day Adventists who don't know their beliefs.
The affirmative task we have now is to create a new world order.
Notice the new world order. It's almost complete.
That I offered myself that we needed a new world order.
Pope Benedict XVI is calling for a new world financial order in the 3rd encyclical of his pontificate, Globalized Economy. The document was released just hours before the G8 summit.
The power behind the scenes secret societies. Notice what is Skull and Bones, Illuminatis, Masons, and all them groups They have one master.
Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order.
I'm also going to start with a mark of the beast that they already have in White House. So be more patient, and all they have to do is enforcing their law. And the whole thing is combined with religion.
So there have been extraordinary scenes in Berlin tonight as thousands of people gathered to hear Barack Obama deliver key foreign policy speech on his current European tour. The Democratic presidential hopeful laid out his vision for America's place in a new world order, saying he was speaking as a proud citizen.
Pope Francis is a first in many ways, the first Jesuit pope, the first pope from the New World, and the first one to take the name Francis. As Jorge Mario Bergoglio, he lived in a simple apartment. As Argentina's top church official, he opposed Argentina becoming the first Latin American country to legalize gay marriage. He opposed euthanasia and giving away free birth control. Many thought his age of 76 would rule him out this time. He is now the leader of more than 1 billion Catholics around the world. And as the world found out the name and identity of the new pope, there were cheers.
We're here at Blessed Sacrament Parish, We Are Change LA, to meet someone who has been nicknamed the Black Pope. He's actually the Jesuit general, and his name is Very Reverend Adolfo Nicholas S.J.
Better get in there. Yeah, that way.
We're here to say hi and talk to him about his nickname and his extreme oath of the Jesuits.
You just came out of a campaign, election, and the inauguration of a new president. We have been exposed to 1 year and a half of words and words and words, or even religious words, because also religious words have been manipulated. I am so happy we have a financial crisis.
Hello, I really enjoyed your service. Thank you so much. I was wondering, I had a couple of questions. I was wondering if you could clear something up for me.
Maybe later, because
just really quick. Why do they call you the Black Pope?
Oh, that started in the 19th century.
Did it really?
Yeah, but I don't like it because it's in terms of power, no?
Yeah.
So they thought that the general of the Jesuits had a lot of power, but he wears black, so Black Pope.
Oh, maybe, well, yeah.
I'm not Pope,
And
and
you
I
don't
have
have
no
a fish
power.
on you. And I see that there's a lot of liberal symbols here. One of the things in your Jesuit high oath, I think it says something about, furthermore, you promise to declare that we'll, at the first opportunity, seek war at any opportunity against heretics, Protestants, liberals.
What is that?
See here? And that will spare neither age nor sex nor condition, and I will hang, waste, boil, flays. You've never seen this before?
No, I've never seen it.
Strangle, bury alive, and it's horrible. And I was like, look, it's in the congressional record. But he was very confused. He'd never seen it before. I told him it was in the congressional record. He said that he might talk to me later about it, but there was a big line. So do we want to wait and talk to him later about it? Just so that you know what I was asking him. I furthermore promise and declare that I will, when opportunity presents, to wage relentless war, secretly or openly, against all heretics, Protestants, and liberals, as I am directed to extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth, and that I will spare neither age, sex, or condition, and that I will hang, waste, boil, flay, strangle, and bury alive these infamous heretics, rip up the stomachs and wombs of their women, and crush their infants' heads against the walls in order to annihilate forever the execrable race. And then it goes on to say some other stuff. But you can look this up. It's on the internet. I just want to read this on camera real quick. I'm just trying to find a private moment. He said that I could talk to him afterwards.
Okay,
when
but
the line was not too busy.
You need to go outside with all that.
Okay.
Because right now he's not going to read nothing because he's going to go somewhere else.
Oh.
Excuse me. So thank you.
Do you think we were bothering you?
I think so with your letting us.
Okay.
We can't have that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry. I was just trying to clear something up.
I know. But this...
Well, it's a bill that has received very little attention but may make free speech a felony and seriously restrict your right to political protest. Just signed into law by the president, H.R. 347 gives federal agents sweeping powers to arrest and bring felony charges against citizens engaged in protests where the Secret Service is present. Joining us now with more, Fox News senior judicial analyst, good friend, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, the thing that jumps out off the page, felony?
Yeah, felony means more than a year in jail. This is not like a traffic ticket. For standing and protesting, the type of thing that for 230 years Americans took for granted because it was protected by the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, has actually been abridged by legislation the president signed last Thursday, supported overwhelmingly by both parties, with very, very little public debate and very little debate in Congress. Basically allows Secret Service agents to decide where there are no free speech zones, not speech zones, no free speech zones. And anybody by the Secret Service can, protected by the Secret Service, can ask those agents to ban protests wherever they are. So I can think of 3 violations: speech violations, association violations, the right to petition the government for a redress of your grievances. What good is free speech if the people in the government are so far away from you that they can't hear you?
Judge, what about keeping our elected officials safe?
Keeping our elected officials safe is entirely different from insulating them from protest. The fact that the president is going to a hotel up the block should not bar you from standing across the street with a sign or with a bullhorn saying what you think about the president's policies. That is not a threat to him, and it is a part of American history since day one that we have the right to speak freely to, about, and against those in the government.
Judge, do you think this is going to be one of those laws that is on the books but not enforced?
I think it's one of those laws that's going to be enforced when the government wants it enforced. The problem, Eric, is it puts a lot of unbridled discretion in the hands of Secret Service agents who may very well say, you know what, boss, you've had a rough day. We'll keep everybody away from you. Or, you know what, boss, this crowd likes you, so we're going to let them, we're going to let you hear them. That's suppressing speech on the basis of its content. And that has been expressly prohibited by the First Amendment since day one.
What dictates the Secret Service is present? In other words, aren't they present all over Washington, D.C.?
Well, they are, and that's a great question, because this law also allows the president to give Secret Service protection to whoever he wants. I'll give you a bizarre example. His campaign managers are coming to Washington to confer with him about the campaign. He can give them Secret Service protection. And then the Secret Service can say to the kids in the streets, you can't shout at David Axelrod, because the campaign manager, because the Secret Service is protecting him. This is a slow, creeping destruction of some of our basic liberties, and the president signed it in secret.
And now some of the Secret Service are going to be providing services for the candidates now as well, right?
Correct.
So
correct.
People aren't going to be able to have their opinion about the candidates?
If the Secret Service so declares, you won't be able to shout at.
The Bible says the mark of the beast means this power has a mark. The beast is a language that God is using for this power. And they themselves, they says in their own book, the book of Catechism, the old version, notice, they says Sunday worship is their mark of authority. The new version, they don't use the word authority, but at least, thank God, they still admit it. Even the new version of Catechism, they still says they changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. Friends, the mark of the beast is not worldly speculations that sometimes you hear. Some people says, well, it's computer chip. Unfortunately, you don't find in the Bible. And some people says, it's 666. But according to Revelation 13 verse 18, actually 666 help you to find the beast. What I mean is to identify the beast. But the Bible says the mark. The reason why I repeat and I kind of stretch it because I don't want you to miss it. It's a deception. Notice the mark of the beast. It's clear. Daniel chapter 7 verse 17 says, the four beasts which thou saw are the four kings who reign on the earth. Babylon is the first kingdom. Medo-Persia Empire was the second kingdom, and Greece, third kingdom. Rome, fourth kingdom. So when Revelation 13 verse 18 says, here is wisdom, let him who have understand calculate the number of the beast, is a number of a man. His number is 666. So according to Revelation 13 verse 18, 666 help you to identify the beast. Roman Catholic, Roman numerals, some of them have a value, some of them doesn't. But when you put all of them together, it ends up to 666. Constantine changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. But unfortunately, Sunday churches, they adopt sun worship day for so many years. They don't want to get rid of it. But actually, it's a pagan sun worship day, Sunday worship. Look even the spellings, you'll find out. Matter of fact, if you look at your calendar, Sunday is always begin as the first day of the week. Unfortunately, they will skip, and some people, they don't know, they will count Monday as the first day of the week, because according to Revelation chapter 12 verse 9, the devil will deceive the whole world. So it's a deception. So the devil, he's in the process blinding the people, including the Christendom. Friends, if you go to church Sunday, notice the first day church, now you don't have the mark of the beast according to Revelation 14 and 13, unless the law is enforced. That's why now you hear different country, they try to forcing the people to now sell or do anything on Sunday because they try to enforce the law. But according to Bible, notice United States is the one who's going to cause the whole world to worship the beast. Their sun worship day means Sunday worship according to Revelation 13. So whenever United States enforce the law, and every country also going to enforce, because they control the whole world, every president on the Roman Catholic Church.
When our founders declared a new order of the ages, they were acting on an ancient hope that is meant to be fulfilled.
Pope Francis greeted 132 official delegations that came to Rome to congratulate him and welcome his pontificate. He greeted them one by one in St. Peter's Basilica. The delegations that were highlighted the most were the ones from Argentina and Italy. The Vatican was quite busy. Among the heads of state and dignitaries, there were 6 current monarchs, 32 heads of state, 3 heirs to the throne, and 11 government leaders. From Latin America, 10 heads of state attended. Among them was Chilean President Sebastián Piñera, who along with his wife asked the Pope to bless a few religious items. The President of Ecuador, Rafael Correa, brought his mother to the Mass. Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff was also there, as well as Mexico's President Enrique Peña Nieto, whose wife gave the Pope a papal hat. Vice President Joe Biden led the delegation from the U.S. The Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, was also in attendance, as well as Spain's Prince and Princess, headed by the government's President, Mariano Rajoy. In countries where Christians are a minority were also represented, countries like Bahrain, Morocco, Israel, and Turkey. The Pope greeted each one of the delegations and paid special attention to countries where wars or violent conflicts are an everyday reality. And before leaving the Basilica, the Pope took the time to greet and also thank the team who made sure everything was ready for him and his guests inside the Basilica,
including from Belgium and Monaco. There was a brief chat with Robert Mugabe and his wife. The President of Zimbabwe is a devout Roman Catholic. Behind him, in line and waiting to meet the Pope, leaders from the European Union.
When a Catholic Jesuit learns Sunday churches, their doctrine, and Vatican II, when they infiltrate their churches, and they draw all their churches to so-called the mother of the church, because they know their doctrine and they can answer questions and preach. So the members of the Sunday churches, they think all the pastors are faithful pastors. So now it's all about my pastor says, my pastor says, my pastor says. And this is the crying that a lot of times you hear from them. Instead of them to study to show thyself approved, just like Bible says, they're making the flesh their right arm. And some of them, when they learn the Sabbath truth, that is always Saturday, because their pastors has been hypnotized them for so many years. So when they go and they talk to their pastors, instead of them to talk to God and make decision based on that says the Lord, they make their pastors make decision for them, because that's how bad they hypnotize them.
They come right out and state exactly how they infiltrate any religious group they want. They'll come in pretending to be a Pentecostal, pretending to be a Baptist, taking the leadership role and then completely subverting it from the inside.
Cari amici, ieri, martedì 15 maggio, si è celebrata la Giornata Internazionale delle Famiglie.
Marking the World Day for the Family this week, Pope Benedict has appealed for the right to work and to rest for families worldwide.
Equilibrio fra due questioni strettamente connesse.
In comments following his Wednesday lesson on prayer and the life of the early church, the Holy Father said, work should not hinder the family but rather support and unite it, helping it to be open to life and to enter into a relationship with both society and within the church. The Holy Father also hoped that Sunday, the Lord's Day, and our weekly celebration of his resurrection will be a day of rest and an opportunity to strengthen the family bonds.
I have repeatedly offered $1,000 to anyone who can prove to me from the Bible alone that I am bound to keep Sunday holy. There is no such law in the Bible. It is a law of the Holy Catholic Church alone. The Bible says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. The Catholic Church says, no, by my divine power I abolish the Sabbath day and command you to keep holy the first day of the week. And lo, the entire civilized world bows down in a reverent obedience to the command of the Holy Catholic Church. T. Enright, CSSR, in a lecture at Hartford, Kansas, February 18, 1884. The Catholic Church for over 1,000 years before the existence of a Protestant, by virtue of her divine mission, changed the day from Saturday to Sunday. The Catholic Mirror, September 23, 1893.
The mark of the beast, the worship issue in Revelation chapter 13. If you get time, read it, because Revelation chapter 13 verse 12, it's a worship issue, and verse 15, it's a worship issue, and verse 8 is a worship issue. And the Bible helps us to understand that behind the scene, Revelation 13 is the devil. He wants the whole world to worship him first. You have to escape. You have to study your Bible. Christ is calling you, whether you are Christian or not. Whenever you hear Sunday worship in any countries, do not accept it. God is going to protect you. Bible says our bread and water will be sure.
Abraham Lincoln said it this way. He says, the best way to destroy your enemy is to make him your friend. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, the enemy only comes to do three things: to steal, kill, and destroy the truth. That's what he's trying to do. So now let's travel back in time 4,000 years and begin to discover where the history of some of these traditions came from. We're going to find ourselves all the way back in the time of Noah. Matter of fact, let's begin in the old-fashioned way. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there lived a man named Nimrod. Nimrod was the great-grandson of Noah. He was the most popular man on the earth at the time. Matter of fact, he was the king of the then-known world. He was responsible for building the cities of Babel, and the Tower of Babel, and the city of Nineveh, amongst others. Well, all that being aside, Nimrod, no doubt, had tremendous influence among the people that he was with. And what happened was he had this uncanny reputation of strength. He created great armies, and he was the ruler of the then-known world right after the flood. He was full of idolatry and covetousness, drunkenness, and rebelliousness towards God. And he had a phenomenal ability to deceive. Matter of fact, I suppose he was much like, I guess, an early politician 4,000 years ago. But Nimrod married a woman named Semiramis. Now, Semiramis and Nimrod became basically king and queen of the then-known world. Well, at some point, Nimrod dies, and he became deified. He was the very first person that was ever deified on planet Earth, and they made him the sun god, which ended up being Baal. The word Baal in your scriptures can be traced back to Nimrod. So it's an interesting reality of history. When you see Baal and Ashtaroth, you're ended up coming all the way back to this story of Nimrod and Semiramis. And so Baal is now ruling the universe as the sun god, and somehow, luck has it, through the Babylonian legend, that Semiramis gets pregnant by the rays of the sun of her deceased husband, Nimrod. And she gives birth to a young baby boy named Tammuz. Now, further down in the story, as Tammuz grows and becomes a man, Tammuz actually marries his mother, and they have a very sexual relationship. And that baby Tammuz and his mother Semiramis is where you get the story of Cupid. Cupid, during Valentine's Day, is how the story of Valentine's Day developed, was from Tammuz, who married a very unbiblical relationship with his mother. Okay, back to the story of Tammuz. So Tammuz, for 40 years, was a tremendous hunter, and he took the place of his father, ruling the world, and had tremendous power. But more than anything, he was a credible hunter. But unfortunately, his gift and his skill of hunting caught up with him one day, because he was killed during his 40th year by a wild boar. Every spring, the first Sunday after the vernal equinox, the spring equinox, they have what was called Ishtar's Sunday. And they would have a sunrise service. At the sunrise service, the priest of Ishtar would impregnate young virgins on the altar, and during that same service, they would take the babies that were now 3-month-old from the previous year, and they would sacrifice those children on the altar to Ishtar, and then they would take the eggs of Ishtar, and they would dip those eggs in the blood of those young infants. And that is where we get sunrise services, and that is potentially where we get the dyeing of Easter eggs. It is also interesting to note that worldwide universal color of Easter eggs is red. Even the White House, the official color of the White House Easter egg is ruby red. Now, back to Tammuz. Tammuz gets killed by a wild boar. So every year, in commemoration of celebrating the death and the deification of Tammuz, which became the son of God, the son of his father, they would set aside 40 days prior to Easter, and they would fast and they would pray, and they would have a giant feast on Easter Sunday where they would celebrate the death and the resurrection of Tammuz. And guess what they would have for dinner on that Sunday evening? You got it, Easter ham. They would kill a boar in commemoration to Tammuz, who was killed by a wild boar. And yes, the 40 days prior to Easter, where we call it Lent, or the Catholics call it Lent, That 40 days did not come from, my friends, the 40 days of Jesus in the wilderness. That 40 days was already in place for thousands of years before Jesus even showed up. It comes from the 40 days of fasting and praying for Tammuz before they celebrated Easter. I'm going to give you some of the names and what they're most commonly remembered for in these different cultures, and some of you will recognize them immediately. First of all, in Egypt, they were known as Isis and Osiris. In Phoenicia, they were recognized as Asheroth and Baal, the very same Asheroth and Baal that you see in the scriptures. In Greece, they were Aphrodite and Adonis, or Eros, where we get the word erotic from. And in Rome, they were called Venus and Cupid. That's right, that's where we get Valentine's Day from, and Cupid. Even in the Far East, listen to this, this is amazing, Cupid was known as Zoroaster. Zoroaster is made up of two words, Zoro, which means seed of, and Asheroth, which is Easter. And so what Cupid actually means in the Far East is the seed of Easter, or the seed of his mother. God always tries to speak to the Israelites and warn them to stay away from Ashtaroth and Baal. Let's read the scriptures. Judges chapter 2 verse 13 says this, "And they forsook Yahweh and served Baal and Ashtaroth." 1 Samuel chapter 7 verse 4 says, "Then the children of Israel did put away Baalim and Ashtaroth and served Yahweh only." And last but not least, in Romans chapter 11 verse 4 it says, "But what says the answer of God unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal." Right about this time, you're probably having that thought that I warned you about hit your brain, saying, that's not what it means to me. I celebrate the birth of Jesus, and I put all the focus on Jesus, and I celebrate his resurrection, and I want to focus on him. Well, your heart may be to want to focus on him, and you absolutely may do that. But the truth of the matter is that it doesn't matter how much we focus, how sincere we are, and how pure our hearts are. It only matters that are we worshiping him the way that he asks us to worship him, and is anything that we're doing offending him? Well, later on in the program, we're going to go through the scriptures and see if there are any scriptures talking about Christmas and Easter and any particular instructions allowing us to worship him in whatever way that we want. But in the meantime, please keep an open mind as we move through the rest of this history and some of these symbols, which are very shocking, that you're going to find out how they moved through time and ended up in our Christian churches today. Tammuz and his mother, Semiramis. If you look on your screen, you're going to see Isis and Osiris, or this is Ishtar and Tammuz. Now, some of you may be asking, well, wait a minute, I celebrate Easter. You're talking about Ishtar. Easter is actually the Anglicization of the word Ishtar. In other words, if you say Ishtar in English, it's pronounced Easter. That's how the etymology of that word evolved over time. What I want you to see is, I want you to see what's on her head is a crescent moon, and in the center of that crescent moon is the actual sun itself. And so the symbol of power of Isis, or Ishtar, was the crescent moon holding the sun itself, her deceased husband, Baal, the sun god. And you can see the baby there that is nursing from her breast. Ishtar was known as the goddess of the East, the bare-breasted fertility god of the East, or the sunrise, which is why they had the service at sunrise on Easter morning. Here on your screen, you see a pagan carving of the solar deity Baal Hadad depicted as a disc in a crescent. Okay, you can see the half-moon disc there in the center of your screen with the sun that is cradled inside of it. And that is the sun god, as well as the crescent moon that surrounds it. Now, as you see that the main symbol for the sun god was the crescent moon with the sun on the top of it, or centered and cradled inside that crescent moon, we now move to something that's a bit controversial but very true historically, is the Catholic Eucharist is actually the sun that is inside of that crescent moon. I'm going to show you some pictures of the actual Eucharist in different positions, and you're going to see that not only is it similar, it's identical. This is where they got the symbols from. You can see here, this is a particular object that holds the Eucharist, and I found this online, and this is what the quote said. I left off the particular church for obvious reasons, but this was their advertisement for a particular Friday. It says, Eucharistic adoration is held on the first Friday of every month for the purpose of honoring and praying to the Blessed Sacrament. Now, I don't know about you, but my Bible says to pray to the Father, our Father. Yeshua, Jesus, said to pray to the Father. He did not say to pray to inanimate objects, whether they represent Him or not. Now, look very carefully at, on the right-hand side, you can see the moon, the crescent moon shaped, holding that sun or that wafer of bread. Here's a close-up of it right here. The crescent moon cradle with the sun-shaped monstrance of the Roman Catholic Church. And now you'll see that it's actually the rays of the sun go all the way around this. They didn't hide it at all. Why did they not hide it? Because this is thousands of years old. This comes right out of paganism and sun god worship, where it was the symbol of Baal and his wife Ishtar. And right here you can see the pine cone staff is another symbol found in paganism that's connected with the sun god coming out of Egypt, Osiris. It's kind of in the form of a pitchfork, you can see, where the pine cone is in the center. Now, why did they choose a pine cone? Because a pine cone represents fertility. It comes from the pine tree, which stays green all year round. And so as everything began to die in the winter, the pine tree became a symbol of new hope and life and fertility. And you can see that even in Mexico, they found a Mexican god that is holding a pine cone on one hand, pine cones on one hand, and the pine cone tree on the other. Now, what's interesting is the largest pine cone structure in the world can be found in the Court of the Pine at the Vatican itself. Let me ask a question. Why is a pine cone being found in the Court of the Pine at the Vatican? Why did they choose a pine cone? Why is it that the pine cone can be found on the staff of the Pope himself? Because this staff goes all the way back to ancient sun god worship, where it represented power and authority of the gods, you see. And this is a close-up of that staff right here, where the pine cone is embedded right in the staff itself. Let's move on to another symbol. This is the symbol of the trident. The trident is the devil's pitchfork. It really is a symbol of Satan, of the horns of Satan. It's an ancient satanic and pagan hand gesture called the trident. We find this in archaeology all over the place. Whenever you get into any kind of society of sun god worship, you find the trident everywhere. You see it in ancient Babylon. It was placed in the hands of all the pagan sun gods. All the pagan gods and pharaohs had some sort of trident, a staff, that they would be connected to power and authority of the gods. The most famous one, of course, is Neptune's trident. We call it the devil's pitchfork, and that's where it comes from. It's just not a drawing that someone made up. This has history built into it of where these things come from. Now, if you move forward in time, or during the same time period, you're going to find another symbol that is even more important. As a matter of fact, you're going to see two symbols in this picture. This is a pagan statue of Jupiter that has been renamed St. Peter. And he's holding up, guess what? The trident symbol. That symbol is a satanic symbol recognizing the power of the gods of the sun. And you'll also see another symbol in this picture, and that is the halo. Look real carefully. It's not a halo, it's a sunburst. What they put behind the heads of the gods, or the saints, if you will, is not a halo, it is a sunburst representing the power of the sun god. And they call this St. Peter in the Vatican, but in reality, history tells us this is the god Jupiter. You also see what is baby Jesus, supposed to be baby Jesus, is none other than baby Tammuz. And how do we know it's not Jesus? Because you see trident all over the place. You see the trident symbol in the hand of the infant Jesus, along with the tridents coming out of the statue's head. You'll see three tridents, two coming off the sides of the head and one coming off the top of the head. This is not baby Jesus, ladies and gentlemen. This is a pagan sun god, Tammuz, from the story of Baal, Nimrod, and Semiramis, ended up being Cupid in today's Valentine's Day. And right here is the ancient Babylonian altar for the sun god Baal, and its main symbol is the 8-pointed star, which can be depicted as 2 4-point stars built inside of one another as the solar wheel. We see the same solar wheel sunburst over a Buddhist temple in Thailand. Here is a monastery, St. Ignatius, where the solar wheel or sunburst is depicted in the floor tiles. Here is the face of a child, which is, of course, Tammuz, within the fertility symbol of the sun's rays on a Roman Catholic altar. The same exact symbol is shown in a face of the Babylonian sun god on a pulpit in a Roman Catholic church in Scandinavia. Okay, all this same symbol comes right out of paganism, as I've shown. Okay, this is probably one of the most fascinating pictures that I have. I zoomed in to the Vatican using Google Earth and stopped several miles above, and look what we discovered is this is the largest solar wheel on Earth. This is the court of St. Peter at the Vatican in Rome itself. Excuse me, the sun disk behind the head of this Roman Catholic statue in Westminster Cathedral in London. Where did they get the idea of sun disks behind these saints? It's because this was what was found behind the head of Jupiter and all these sun gods was the actual monstrance of the Roman Catholic Church. That halo is not a halo, that is a sun disk, and they borrowed it from paganism. We see here behind Krishna another sun disk behind his head. And this is just to show that it doesn't just happen in Catholicism, that the sun disk predates Catholicism by hundreds, even thousands of years. It was borrowed. We see it in stained glass windows behind all of the Roman Catholic saints, even Mary. And if you look carefully, you see the Sacred Heart. That Sacred Heart, even though I don't have time to go into this, even the Sacred Heart comes right out of paganism. That exact same symbol with the sun disk behind the Sacred Heart has to do with Baal and Tammuz, the sun gods. And you can see it all over the Roman Catholic Church, and even in other pagan religions across the world. And where do we find this 8-pointed star, this solar wheel, this sun disk today? None other than on top of our Christmas trees. Now, I know all of us have been taught that the star on top of the Christmas tree represents the Star of Bethlehem, that the kings came in to find baby Jesus. But unfortunately, the star of the ancient pagan sun gods predates the star of the Christmas tree, the Star of Bethlehem, by over 1,000 years. They were taking the sunburst and connecting it to what you're going to learn in just a few minutes is the tree of Nimrod, and that is where we get our Christmas tree from and the star that we put on top. If you look carefully, you can see there is a tremendous significance and a similarity between the sunburst and the stars that we put up there today. Here's the sun disk proudly displayed on top of Christmas trees in a mall. Matter of fact, this one doesn't even hide the fact that it's not a star. It's the sun that you're looking at. Even the 8-pointed star on top of the White House Christmas tree for everyone to see is the same 8-point star that we find in archaeology thousands of years ago connected to pagan sun god worship. This is an incredible quote that I found in my research when trying to make a connection between Ishtar and the 8-pointed star. And in Uruk, an ancient Sumerian city in southern Iraq, 3,000-year-old tablets were discovered where it said that the celestial identity of Ishtar was none other than the 8-pointed star. You can look up the resource for that on your own. Okay, the word obelisk literally means Baal's shaft or Baal's organ of reproduction. It's almost always placed in the center of a circle, the solar wheel, which represents the female genitalia and the physical sexual act. And so this is why the solar wheel and the obelisk work together in tandem. This is why you see the solar wheel in the Vatican Square, St. Peter's Square, and you see the obelisk that runs right dead center through the hub of that wheel. It's the consummation of that sexual act between the sun god and his wife, Semiramis, or Ishtar, or as we pronounce it in English, Easter. You can see how the two work in tandem together. Now, in some of these, as the one that you can see here in Turkey, you can see that the ancient hieroglyphic and their language and pictures are actually still on these obelisks. Here's Cleopatra's Needle. Cleopatra's Needle is not just a neat little emblem. This was erected as a commemoration to the sun god there in London. This is the oldest obelisk in Scotland. This is the oldest obelisk in Switzerland, you can see. In Germany, in Paris, France, this one's covered with Egyptian hieroglyphics, all talking about a sun god worship. How about Mecca? It would scare me to death, ladies and gentlemen, to find out that that Islam's one of their big idols is an obelisk right there, dead center, downtown Mecca. And here, these obelisks we find all over the United States here. How about in Luxor, Egypt, near the Nile River, there is an Egyptian obelisk. This is one of the most famous obelisks in the entire world. It's in Buenos Aires, Argentina. It's dedicated to the sun god Ra, who is said to live inside of it. Everyone in that town, in that city, that's been there and knows the history behind that obelisk knows that and understands that. Here's one in Amsterdam. Here's one in Ethiopia, Mongolia. That is not a place for an Egyptian obelisk which represents the male organ of the sun god coming through the genitalia of the solar wheel. Should not be in anything that is connected to Jesus, our Lord, whatsoever. But unfortunately it is in this modern day. The mixture of paganism and Christianity has crept into such a degree that we don't even recognize it because we don't know our history. We don't read the front of the book. Okay, now this is an interesting slide because this particular picture is of an obelisk that's in the court of St. John's Church over there in Rome. And it's actually the Pope's church. It's actually the cathedral of the Pope. Here's this obelisk where it came from. The Egyptian obelisk that stands in the square of St. John Lateran is the largest in existence. Originally carved during the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose III, it stood in the temple of Ammon in Thebes, sun god, but was removed to Rome by Emperor Constantius, AD 317 to 361, and placed in the Circus Maximus. In 1587, Pope Sixtus V unearthed the fallen, broken, and long-forgotten obelisk and had it repaired and placed in the Piazza S. Giovanni in Laterano. How about the Washington Monument? Is it a monument? It certainly is a monument, but it's not a monument to our God. It's a monument to the sun god. Where do we find this main symbol of the obelisk? Would it shock you to discover that we find it in our churches? That's right. That's where the sun god obelisk ended up. It ends up in our churches all around the world. We call them steeples. They're called obelisk in ancient Egypt. If Pharaoh or an ancient Egyptian was alive today, they would walk down the street and they would feel comfortable coming to most of the churches that we have today because they would say, wow, that is my religion. That's something that I can connect to. That is sun god worship. And we see throughout all around the world, here's one that has two pillars that are built into this particular church. Ladies and gentlemen, the obelisk, the sun god worship, there shouldn't be one single symbol anywhere of ancient paganism or Egyptian sun god worship that is found inside of our religious societies today in Christianity. We see it, it doesn't matter what denomination, whether it's Lutheran, whether it's Baptist, whether it's non-denominational, it doesn't matter where you find it, no matter what denomination, you are going to find this obelisk all over the place. Now we come to this same slide that says, but that's not what it means to me, Jim, and I know that many of you are thinking that. And the reality is it doesn't matter what it means to us, and that's so difficult for us to comprehend and to get through our hearts and our minds, that it only matters what it means to Him. Certainly most of us would not wear a necklace that was a satanic symbol. But yet we will build churches with symbols that we don't even know are satanic. We will have holidays that surround themselves with pagan symbols, and yet because we don't know them, we think it's okay. But the reality is that the great God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, He knows what those symbols mean. And so from his perspective, he sees those symbols, and it reminds him of when they passed their children through the fire of Molech. It reminds them of the infants that were killed and sacrificed on the altars of Ishtar. It reminds him of all the sun god worship, of all of his people that turned their side against Yahweh and served other gods. It's a reminding symbol to him, and for that reason alone, we should put those symbols behind us and get rid of them and burn them, like Nehemiah and Jeremiah and the great prophets of old that tore down those high places and they destroyed those pillars. And here they spent their blood in pouring out their blood and their strength and their children to tear down those high places. And here we are building those high places right back up. Now, when do you think the birthday of Nimrod and Tammuz was? On the first day of the year when the sun is reborn. And what day do you think that the sun is reborn? In the middle of the winter, at this winter solstice, December 25th. That's right. That's where we get December 25th on Christmas Day, where we say that Jesus was born. Why did we choose Jesus being born on December 25th? Where did that date come from? Very simple. Jesus was the Son of God. Tammuz was the son of the gods. He was the son of his father, Baal. And so the pagans, which early Christianity came right out of paganism in Rome, they were already worshiping the sun god on Sunday in Rome, which is where we get worshiping on Sunday from. It used to be that all of the early Christians worshiped on Saturday, but it was changed to Sunday because all of the pagans worshiped the sun god on his day, Sunday, and they worshipped him on his birthday on December 25th. So naturally, when Jesus came into the picture and Constantine supposedly got saved in the 300s, they compromised to make it easier for people to convert to Christianity by making Jesus' birthday on the same birthday as the sun gods that they were already used to celebrating, and that's where we get December 25th from. Let's move to this character called Odin, because this is where we're going to get into a little bit more detail of our holiday, is where some of these symbols come from. Along with the celebration of the sun gods, the Scandinavians also worshiped this god called Odin. He was the god of intoxicating drink, ecstasy, as well as the god of death. And because of the Feast of Saturnalia dealing with all those things, he naturally became the most popular god of the Feast of Saturnalia, which was a sun god, which we can trace all the way back to Baal himself. Guess who this character became? Look at him very carefully. What does he look like? The colors are wrong, but this guy became Santa Claus. That's right. Odin, or Woden, was the god of wisdom, magic, and occult knowledge, runes, poetry, and war. And so what we're going to show you right now is an actual clip or a short movie of a montage of different videos that we've discovered of where they still make this celebration, still celebrate this all around the world, where they literally glorify the demonic part of Christmas and St. Nicholas and these dark helpers. There are some scholars that believe that the actual song Jingle Bells came from the Krampus bells that were in existence for a long time before that song was ever written, that every time you saw St. Nicholas, he was accompanied by the bells of Christmas, if you will, from his elves. They used to have bells that would hang from their necks, and as you heard in the video, they would you would hear the bells as they announced themselves into the next town that they were going into. Look here, the World Book Encyclopedia says this: the belief that Santa enters the house through the chimney developed from an old Norse legend. The Norse believed that the goddess Hertha appeared in the fireplace and brought good luck to the home. Let's move into Deuteronomy chapter 12. This is really the king of scriptures, if you will, that give us a good, clear indication of whether or not we can do things just because we are sincere about it. Deuteronomy chapter 12 says this, "And you shall destroy their altars, break their sacred pillars, their obelisk, burn their wooden images with fire. You shall cut down the carved images of their gods and destroy their names from that place. You shall not worship the Lord your God with such things." He says, you shall not at all do, as we are doing here today, every man doing whatever's right in our own eyes. When the Lord your God cuts off from before you the nations which you go to dispossess, still in chapter 12 of Deuteronomy here, and you displace them and dwell in their land, listen carefully, in verse 30 it says, "Take heed to yourself that you are not ensnared to follow them, after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? I will also do likewise." So what was happening was they were coming into these communities and they were creative Israelites. They wanted to take some of the creative things that the pagans used to serve their gods and borrow those ideas to serve the great God Yahweh. And Yahweh has this to say about it. He says in verse 31, "You shall not worship Yahweh your God, the Lord your God, in that way. For every abomination to the Lord which he hates, they have done to their gods. For they burn even their sons and daughters in the fire to their gods. Whatever I command you, be careful to observe it. You shall not add or take away from it." Period. Verse 32 of Deuteronomy chapter 12. And some of the most influential Christian leaders in American history were looking for alternatives and refused to celebrate Christmas and Easter because of their pagan backgrounds. Charles Spurgeon said this, on December 24th, Christmas Eve, 1871, look at this quote, "We have no superstitious regard for times and seasons. Certainly we do not believe in the present ecclesiastical arrangement called Christmas. First, because we do not believe in the Mass at all, but abhor it, whether it be said or sung in Latin or English." He went on to say, and secondly, because we find no scriptural warrant whatsoever for observing any day as the birthday of our Savior. And consequently, its observance is a superstition because it's not of divine authority. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most spiritually held up pastors of all time, is Charles Spurgeon. And he himself says Christmas is of no divine origin, it's of no divine authority, and we absolutely should not celebrate it. Why? Because he knew that its origins were in paganism and cultic philosophy. I want to share with you some alternatives, biblical alternatives, something that's straight from God himself, things that he tells us to celebrate, curriculums designed for our children. Look at some of these holidays. First of all, we have what did all of the disciples do in the spring that just so happens to be the time of Easter? Absolutely. It's called Passover. Luke 22:19 says this, "And he took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Do Passover. Obviously, Easter was nowhere in the minds of our Lord Jesus Christ, Yeshua the Messiah, or his disciples, or anybody for hundreds of years. They celebrated what's in Hebrew called Pesach, Passover, every single year, remembering the death, burial, and resurrection of their Lord through that incredible holiday where they used to sacrifice a Passover lamb for the remembrance of the death of the firstborn and the freedom from Egypt. But now today they're remembering the freedom from sin, freedom from Egypt, being metaphorical, by the death of Jesus himself. So they would never have connected Easter with Passover. It didn't exist. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, Paul even instructs us in verse 8, "Therefore let us keep the festival," talking about Passover, "not with the old yeast, the yeast of malice and wickedness, but with the bread without yeast, the bread of sincerity and truth."
Friends, Saturday is always the Sabbath, the seventh day of the week. Notice, and again, it's always Saturday, and that's why the Bible says the seventh day is the Sabbath. Jewish nation, even though I'm not Jewish, they still keep the Sabbath Saturday. And also encyclopedia You will find it even different language. If you speak Spanish, Sábado means Saturday. You can also find in the Bible, according to Genesis chapter 2, verse 2 to 3, you're going to find out that God created heaven and the earth 6 days, and the 7th day he rested, and that 7th day it's Saturday. And then Jesus Christ, remember, when Adam and Eve they sinned, Jesus Christ came to redeem our soul, and he finished his work 6 days, Friday afternoon. Remember, that's why they call it Easter Friday or Good Friday. It says it is finished Friday, and then he rested Saturday, just like he rested Genesis chapter 2 verses 1 to 3. And Sunday, the early day in the morning, you will find in the book of Luke chapter 24 verses 1 to 3. You will also find in Luke chapter 23 verses 50 to 56. The 7th day is always Saturday until Constantine 321. He changed it from Saturday to his own pagan sun creation worship day. The devil behind the scene. You are about to see the power. God is going to fill us with his outpouring, just like he did it for the first century, the apostle church. And then we're going to go forward and preach the loud cry, the third angel's message. We're going to protest against their pagan sun worship day, means their Sunday worship. And then Jesus Christ will come, just like Bible says, if the day is not short, no flesh will be saved. But for the elect's sake, means those who take a stand, the day will be shortened. Friends, this is a beautiful time in history, because we only one step away from heaven.
This battle is the final conflict of Satan himself to eradicate the Son of God from the minds of men. They're actually saying that this Jesus that is going to come is going to be different from the Jesus that already came. I believe with all my heart that Christianity is in the shaking period. What are we waiting for? A temple? So that the sacrificial system can be inaugurated again, which pointed to a Messiah who has already come? That makes no sense.
Friends, whenever they enforce their sun worship day, Sunday worship, whenever the law is enforced in your country, do not accept it. The mark of the beast in their forehead, symbolic in Revelation, your forehead means your decision. And also when Revelation says their right hand, means your action will follow your decision once you accept their sun worship day, when it's an enforced Sunday worship